Hey guys, what's up? Faramar here. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the patch 9.0 Shadowlands guide for Feral Druid. This is all based on my own experience, and this is all based on my own opinion so far. I'm really enjoying this patch. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm going to go ahead and dive into some of the most commonly asked questions on my stream, such as, what covenants are good? So I went ahead and put this tier list together. We've got um, three different categories: raiding, mythic dungeons, and PvP. The reason I included PvP is I know some of you guys enjoy doing the PvE content, but you also want something that's going to be decent in PvP as well. So I went ahead and included that just to kind of help, if you're still on the fence about what covenant you want to do, if you're thinking about switching covenants, anything like that. So, Kyrian. So Kyrians get two abilities. They get one, which is their main ability, and essentially is a 1-minute cooldown, and you can pair with an ally or yourself. If you pair with yourself, it will give you 15% bonus damage for 10 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. If you pair with an ally, it will give your ally essentially 20% additional arcane damage for 10 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. The utility ability is you summon a steward who can do a lot of stuff, but his primary thing is he gives you 3 files, and these files will heal you for 20% of your total health, as well as remove poison, bleeds, and disease effects. So it's essentially a mini dwarf racial. Now, going into raiding, I think that the 15% damage buff on yourself as well as the 20% damage buff on an ally is going to be extremely strong. While the 20% damage buff on the ally may not show correctly on the logs, I'm expecting Warcraft logs to probably fix the way that their metrics are gathered on this to kind of lend that damage to the Feral Druid rather than the ally, but you never know. So it may not appear very strong on logs. It will be a very strong ability. It is anticipated to be one of the best. When it comes to Mythic Dungeons, they will be strong in single target situations. The AoE situations will kind of be a little bit lackluster compared to other Covenants, but still good. So I went ahead and gave it a B tier in Mythic Dungeons. And then PvP, with the file that removes the poison, bleeds, and diseases, as well as heals you for 20%. And then also the 1-minute cooldown, which synergizes very well with the Feral Druid's notoriously best comp, which is going to be the Jungle Cleave. The 20% additional damage during trap windows is extremely good. So I'm thinking Kyrian is probably going to be the absolute best when it comes to PvP as well. So, going into our next covenant, which is the Necrolords, they get an ability which is a 25-second cooldown, and essentially if you put it on an enemy, it'll do damage over time. If you put it on an ally, it'll do healing over time, and when it expires, it will bounce to a opposite target. So if you put it on an enemy, it'll bounce to an ally. If you put it on an ally, it'll bounce to an enemy, and it does this 3 times. And also, whatever it is on will enhance your periodic effects on that target, such as your damage over time effects on an enemy or your heal over time effects on an ally. In raiding, this is anticipated to be probably one of the best single target covenants. It has a ton of single target output. However, it lacks in multi-target and AoE cleave situations, so it's not completely foolproof when it comes to a raiding situation. Thus, I marked it down as an A tier. In Mythic Dungeons, basically for the same reasons, I'm going to mark it down as a B tier. And then in PvP, something I didn't go over is the utility ability, which is a corpse shield, which will essentially, over 2-second channel, give you a shield for about a third of your health. And that's very strong, especially going into an arena match. It gives you a little bit extra buffer, so it helps your healers out a little bit. It can also help your healers out in raiding in Mythic Dungeons, but I primarily was thinking about it in PvP. Also, the 25-second cooldown on the ability means that it lines up almost perfectly with the 30-second cooldown on Hunter traps in the Jungle Cleave. So I'm thinking it's going to be a very strong pick for PvP as well. Going on to Night Fae, you get a 2-minute ability, and essentially the ability, while you're in cat form, will use 12 Feral Druid abilities and 4 non-Feral Druid abilities in a 4-second channel. It does tremendous amounts of damage, as well as synergizes really well with the Sabertooth talent. that extends your rip duration for each combo point spent on a Ferocious Bite. Each Ferocious Bite that is cast during this 2-minute ability is essentially max combo points and max energy, and will refresh your rips accordingly. The utility ability for the Night Fae is a 15-yard blink that turns you into a fox, and the fox essentially gives you 50% extra move speed for the duration. I believe the duration is 12 seconds, unless you're in a rested zone, in which is indefinite. Now, for rating, I'm marking this down as an S because it's a huge catalyst for the Sabertooth build for Feral Druids. So I'm thinking it's going to be extremely strong because it's going to greatly reduce the amount of Ferocious Bites, greatly reduce the amount of rips that you have to cast, thus increasing the amount of Ferocious Bites that you are able to cast during your rotation. I think it's going to be extremely strong when it comes to DPS. Mythic Dungeons, I marked it down as an A because it's extremely strong in single target situations, especially for Mythic Dungeon boss fights. It's also can be used as an AoE heal in emergency situations. If you shift out of cat form into caster form, you can cast it and basically heal up your entire team in 4 seconds, and your healers will be greatly appreciative if you need to do this in order to save a wipe. Also, when it comes to AoE, you can shift into Boomkin form, and in Boomkin form, you will cast spells such as Sunfire and Starfall, which do great amount of AoE damage, and then continue your AoE rotation as usual. So, not the best in AoE, but very strong option for AoE. In PvP, I marked it down as a B tier, mainly because Convoke the Spirits can one-shot an enemy if you get the entire 4-second cast off, sometimes even in 2 or 3 seconds of it. But the likelihood of getting the entire cast off in PvP is very unlikely, as it can be kicked and it can be stunned or CC'd. So, something to think about there. We'll go ahead and move on to Venthyr. So Venthyr is essentially a 3-minute cooldown, 20-second buff, and during the 20 seconds, each ability you cast will increase your damage and your haste by 1%, and the downside of this is if you go 1.5 seconds without casting any abilities, you will get stunned for 1.5 seconds, and you will also take 1% damage for each stack that you had. So it's very high risk, high reward. The utility ability for Venthyr is essentially a teleport ability, and it's a 1.5 second cast. You can go, I believe, up to 30 or 40 yards, and it's it's better for non-mobile classes, but you can use it as a druid sometimes. So for rating, I went ahead and marked this as an A because it's going to be extremely valuable during heroism windows. I think that during heroism, you will probably be one of the top DPS with this ability popped. In Mythic Dungeons, because of the synergy it has with AoE, it's extremely powerful. With Soul of the Forest and Primal Wrath, you have tons of energy during your AoE rotation. Thus, you are going to be getting plenty of stacks of haste and damage with this ability, and you'll be doing massive damage. The bigger the pool, the better, because Feral Druids also have 2 abilities that are uncapped in AoE, unlike a lot of classes right now. So that's a strength for the Feral Druid that you definitely need to leverage. When it comes to PvP, I went ahead and marked this down as a C tier because it's unlikely that for the whole 20 seconds you're going to cast an ability every second in PvP. You'll get CC'd, you'll get stopped, you'll get kited, something will happen, and you will get stunned and then take damage for each stack. So in PvP, I marked it down as a C tier. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about covenants. So now we'll go ahead and dive into the best soulbinds and conduits. So the best conduits right now for the Kyrian is going to be combat meditation, which is when you activate your Kyrian class ability, increases your mastery by 350 for 10 seconds. So it's a pretty big boost of mastery whenever you use that 1-minute cooldown. Next, we'll look at the Necrolords, which is the best conduit there is going to be, or sorry, the best soulbind ability there is going to be the Forgeborn Reveries. So your agility and armor increase by 1% for each enchantment on your armor up to 3%, and upon death, your armor anchors your soul, allowing you to fight for an additional 10 seconds. So if you die, you basically get to come back as an undead and deal damage for 10 seconds, which is pretty nice. The damage is reduced by 50%, but the main thing is you're getting a ton of agility for each enchant that you have on your stuff. So very powerful overall. The next up is going to be for the Night Fae, which the best Soulbind ability so far is going to be Grove Invigoration. Similar to the Kyrians, whenever you use your ability, you get a large stack of Mastery, but you also get the chance to proc Mastery, and the proc is estimated to be about 2 per minute. And each stack will give you 25 Mastery and 1% health, so it's also a very good boost to your damage. Then you have the Soothing Shade, which is going to be for the Venthyr. This is my least favorite Soulbind ability. I think that the abilities that require you to stand somewhere or have positional requirements or anything like that are lackluster when it comes to rating, because likely you're going to have to move out of it. So anyways, I'll read it anyways. Your spells and abilities have a chance to call Tubbins and Gubbins to your side for 12 seconds, and they hold this little parasol, and when you stand in the parasol, in the shaded area from the parasol, you gain a boost of mastery. So the proc rate is very high on it, but like I said, the positional requirements on it kind of make it a little bit less desirable. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the next slide here. So we're going to go ahead and dive into rating talents. So right now, the recommended rating talents by a lot of Feral Druids is actually running Blood Talons. I personally recommend running Feral Frenzy instead of Blood Talons. If you do the Sims and everything like that on raid bots, Feral Frenzy is barely behind Blood Talons right now. I think that Blood Talent or Feral Frenzy really excels in the department of keeping your rips alive. Also, the damage is pretty good now that they got a buff. So this is the rating talents I'm going to be running with it first. It also reduces the complexity of your rotation by quite a bit. So when you're running around doing all the rotation or doing all the boss mechanics and everything like that, you don't have to remember, oh, did I cast, a different combo point generator 3 times, right? So it's just a little bit more reliable. I may switch back to Blood Talons depending on if it kind of peels away from Feral Frenzy in The Sims when it comes with when we get more gear and such. But right now, I'm running Feral Frenzy. So next, we'll go over Dungeon Talents. So the Dungeon Talents shift a little bit over. I'm running mainly the difference is Predator, which is going to give me Tiger's Fury refreshes whenever I kill a target. So you get, and it also gives you extended Tiger's Fury duration. But in dungeons, you're going to be killing a lot of things back to back to back. So you want to kind of keep that Tiger's Fury and keep that energy regen and keep that 15% damage going. The other main thing that I'm switching over is Primal Wrath from Brutal Slash. So Primal Wrath gives you massive uncapped AoE and applies rip to each target that you hit as well. So also very powerful. You might notice also that I'm keeping Feral Frenzy, and Feral Frenzy is actually very powerful. Blood Talons is a little bit too slow for AoE packs right now, and Moment of Clarity doesn't seem to be keeping up to Feral Frenzy from what I have tried. I may be, behind the curve on this. I don't think so, but other ferals might say Moment of Clarity is the way to go. I think most of the top end ferals that I've spoken with, and as well as my personal experience, say Feral Frenzy is the talent to go for Mythic Plus as well. So, anyways, guys, that's my guide. That's my first guide that I'm going to be releasing on PvE content in Shadowlands. I know you guys had questions about covenants and you had questions about conduits and things like that. So I went ahead and covered those as well as basic talents and everything along those lines. If there's something that I did not cover in here that you want me to cover, please drop me a comment down below. Also, I will be releasing a rotational guide for single target AoE, as well as a Torghast guide coming up as well. So if you are interested in those, stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. It's free. It costs you nothing. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide, and I will see you guys next time. Also, if you want to follow me on my stream is down there in the bottom left, twitch.tv/Faramar. Feel free to come by and ask questions. Have a good one, guys. Thanks. Bye.